This is SLEERICKETS, a podcast about poetry and other intractable problems. Today, Matthew and I have a wonderful guest with us, Nida Sophasarun, who is a friend of Matthew's, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say she's also a friend of mine. She is the author of the collection Novice that came out from LSU Press last year. We're going to talk a bit more about the collection on The Secret Show, but just for now I will say go and get it. Our intractable problem is the question of literary mentorship. I was bored at work the other week and I was hunting around on the Yale Review and I came across this article called An Incomplete Mentorship. This article came out just after a poet called Ellen Bryant Voigt died. And alongside all the tributes to Voigt, there was this article, subtitle of which is, Ellen Bryant Voigt helped me become the writer I am today. After a falling out, we never spoke again. The poet who wrote the article is called Rachel Jamison Webster, and we're going to get into it from a lot of different angles, but all you need to know at this point is Rachel Webster learned a lot from Ellen Voigt, but then Webster started writing in a kind of a mystical way, and Ellen Voigt did not approve. And then they went for lunch, and there was an incident involving Tuna, and things never recovered from there. But also, this article in the Yale Review is about another incident that Rachel Webster shares, and pretty immediately in this episode we get into the ethics of that. I loved having this conversation. I really hope you enjoy listening to it, and I will be back at the end to tell you a bit more about The Secret Show. But for now, here is Matthew, Nida, and myself talking what happens when your mentor changes your lunch order.
I'm so
Hi.
excited.
I'm so excited to meet you.
I am so excited. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm stopping myself from saying, but you're so beautiful.
Oh, wow, this is already going on a face for podcast.
I also can't believe I'm talking to someone in Athens.
I know. Yeah, and thank you for staying up late. I know it's really late there, 10:30. That would be late
Um,
for me.
it's an hour past my bedtime, but it's actually the best version of staying up late to do this show. Usually I'd be up at like 12:30. So this is the sweet spot of the year. So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, well, thanks for staying up. I would not be okay. I don't know what I would say. One time, a class called in and all these bright-eyed students were in the background and I looked like I was wearing a shirt that was normal, but it looked like I was wearing a nightgown and I was sort of and I like stood up and I was like, this is a shirt and I have pants on. And it
I
made
have
everything
pants on.
awkward. Everything awkward. And yeah, so
Yeah,
thank you.
these things happened. I don't know. I mean, I've seen it all. I've seen it all on Zoom over the years. So don't worry.
How long have your poetry podcast, your other podcast, the one that's Poetry Says?
How long have I
Yeah.
did I do it for?
Yeah.
I did it for 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a while.
And did it grow out of just, had you done radio before or had you done like
I'd
any
done
broadcast?
nothing. I'd done nothing. I had no idea what I was doing. I had the world's worst microphone, and I literally thought that what would help would be shutting myself inside a cupboard to record. And I'm like, why won't this fucking hiss go away? This is the worst sound ever. And then eventually I realized like it's inside the mic. You have to buy a better mic if you want. No amount of cupboard is
It
going to
is
save you.
quality. It is quality.
But I used that mic for, probably about 4 years and didn't upgrade. I don't know, like I didn't think of it as a serious thing
Mhm.
for ages because, 2016 being a
Yeah.
podcaster wasn't like something you would put on a super under reality star's name,
Yeah.
And yeah, it took me a long time to take myself seriously. Oh, here comes the boss. Hey, Matthew.
Hey,
Hey, how's it
Matt.
going? Hey, Nida.
Hi.
Good to see you both.
You too.
You've got like sound stuff. You've got foam in your room.
Wow, these are mattress toppers. But I had them like sitting around in here, so I figured I'd put them on the walls. But yeah, it's fake baffling.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it does. It
I'm in the
sort
guest
of does
bedroom.
something. Yeah, it's very nice. It's a very nice looking, very civilized looking guest bedroom. This is our guest bedroom is like half of like.
Nita, I know you said I could come to stay. I'm definitely coming now. Like,
Yes,
I've seen the
absolutely.
bedroom. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You can see my swag. I have a Georgia poster, which has all the little, counties and everything. And
Oh,
I mean,
Georgia, like, but the state, not the country. Yeah.
right,
Because
because
that
we
could
are.
easily have been one of your husband's posts. I don't know.
That is true. That is true. No, we haven't been to the country of Georgia, but that would be cool. That was the breadbasket of the USSR, as it was known, I think.
I think it was Ukraine was something.
Oh, maybe that was Ukraine. I thought, but
Yeah,
I know that Georgia grows a lot of stuff and has a lot of its own
yeah.
culture.
It was Stalin was from Georgia, wasn't he?
Um, I
I
don't
thought he
know.
was.
Maybe,
I don't
yeah,
know.
that sounds
I don't. My
familiar.
like very glancing,
This
like
is not my
occasional knowledge
wheelhouse,
is. Yeah,
Matt. This is not
exactly.
why you had me
We
on.
should
Oh
we should
no,
talk about this the whole
but
episode.
it's 5 minutes in, so we're on to Stalin, and
Yeah,
that's where we're
perfect.
going to stay for at least
Perfect.
50 minutes.
You guys
Hmm.
just said I had to watch the movies and read the essay. So you better
And
ask me.
read about
I
Stalin.
know.
Yeah, exactly. That
If
was
any of
implied, Nita.
you orders, like if you change my order, if we ever go to a restaurant and you change my order to tuna, that's it for this mostly internet relationship.
Oh boy.
Like, yeah,
I mean, it was not good, but it was very funny.
it was.
Like, yeah. Part of me was like, did Ellen Bryant Voigt want to never speak to this woman again? It was like, was that partly calculated in this decision to
No,
order
no.
the tuna?
I felt so bad for her because I'm sure she idolized her and just wanted to do whatever Ellen wanted. But yeah, I felt bad, real bad.
I, I, I have to. It's a crucial question I have to ask you though, Nita, before we talk about this essay.
Hmm.
Are you friends with Rachel Jameson Webster?
No,
You
who
don't
is
know
that?
her.
No.
Oh, the author of the piece.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Ah, I see it now. Yeah, no, I'm not.
Okay,
Why?
good. Phew. Good. No, just good. Good to
Good
know.
to check. Good to check. Got to do all
What
of
Yes.
the
you're about
checks.
to say. No, I'm not. No, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't
All
know
right.
most people. Like you guys are a big percentage. Like this is the thing. I know almost nobody. Like I have my friends and most of my friends have come from them and you and like this is it.
That's a
We,
good way to be, I think.
Yeah.
yeah, that has mostly been true for me. I mean, I've gotten to know some more people in the last few years, but that has mostly
Yeah.
been pretty true for me. Definitely people who are. I was gonna say. Definitely people who are like who are well regarded in the poetry world. I don't want to say no. You present company excluded, of course. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
Listen.
yeah.
I know who I am. I know what I am. It's not. I
Though yeah.
I was put in an emerging voices issue and I was like, I'm 49. Is it something that can you be like I'm happy to be here. Just happy to be here.
What what is it to me? Emerging means I haven't heard of you, right? That's what it means. Yeah,
Okay.
like that, like that's. I mean, I don't know. Like it seems to correspond to age up to a point, but
Yeah.
then usually it just means I, the person making the designation, don't think, like barely know who you are, or am friends with you and don't think anybody knows who you are.
Yeah.
To me,
I
that's
like
what
that
emerging
idea
tends to
better
mean.
than an age thing, you know? Remember 30 under 30? Do they still do that? I think they still do 30 under
Mm.
30. And I just
They do
remember,
tons of under 30 groups for various
yeah,
magazines. Yeah, it's maddening.
I just remember the year that I was in the writing program and like Jhumpa Lahiri was in it and Zadie Smith, I think. And it was just kind of like, well, well, yeah, they're pretty. So,
But given my impression of this very well-regarded poetry world person and her very well-regarded mentor, I'm inclined to say I prefer prefer the company outside.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a
Yeah,
great time, actually. It
doesn't sound
sounds
like a great time.
stressful. Yeah.
Doesn't sound like great. I read a bunch of poems by both of them this morning in a fit of
oh,
frustration. Yeah,
you
I
did more
knew
than you said you were going to do.
I did more than I said I was going to do. I had at, in grad school, Ellen Bright Voigt was at least on friendly terms with the head of the department, and so she came and read and talked some, and we read some of her poems, and I realized I had zero trace of memory of a single one of her poems that I'd ever read or heard. And my impression at the time was that they were stultifying.
Yeah, they read stultifying
Yeah,
on the
reading
page.
reading the ones I read this morning, I thought she's better than Rachel Jameson Webster.
Oh boy. Wait. Can I set up for people what
Please,
the hell's
please,
going on
yeah,
here
yeah.
before we get straight to the jugular?
Joanna was so jealous of like
Oh,
yeah, she
Hi,
was like, oh no,
Joanna.
I want to talk about this
yes,
essay
you
this
should
Yeah,
have
essay.
had
send
her on
her
the
in. Where is
phone.
she? She get her
Yeah.
in.
She's helping the mentally ill. Unlike
Okay.
we're helping the mentally ill
Thank
We're
in
you.
our own way.
we're helping
Yeah,
the mentally
Wow.
ill, but we are maybe making things worse as well.
exactly.
I'm trying to think about from your last Slee Ricketts episode. I'm like, do I not know that death is
Yeah, that's
coming?
what I keep thinking. I'm like, have I not thought about this
Am I just in
properly?
denial?
How hard should I think about it before this man is satisfied with me?
What
Like,
is
at
the
what
what just
point?
what? But I think of it as it's more fun. It's like what flavor of delusion do I practice? Like what like
Yeah.
where is yeah like because I don't
Wow.
necessarily think it's as much about death as it is about like this other
Yeah, I
difficult to
thought that was
name
a really
quality.
good point.
But yeah,
Hmm.
I think we all have. It's like my theory is like if you have a marriage or any like long-term partnership between two people who live together, inevitably there's some way in which the two of them are going to practice a folie à deux. Like the two of them are crazy in some peculiar way. It was in a way like my favorite part of Weapons, the weird horror movie,
Mm.
was there's this like brief scene with this like very sweet gay couple where the one is the principal of the school, the other one we don't know what he does, but like they're really nice and they like basically normal. They're like the contrast normal people in the movie, and you just see them at home, and one of them serves the other this tray of like 8 hot dogs with mustard all like on them, and they just sort of smile and then sit down to eat the hot dogs. And I think like yes, every couple is insane. We just don't know how,
Yeah,
but every single
yeah,
couple is insane.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry,
well,
Alice.
no, don't apologize, please.
Who's your audience?
Well, this is a kind of couple. This is a mentor-mentee. Ellen Bryant Voigt, who died in 2025, is the mentor, and her mentee was a poet called Rachel Jameson Webster. She did an
Hmm.
MFA run by Ellen at Warren Wilson, don't know,
It's a school in North Carolina.
school in North Carolina. So this article came out in the Yale Review about the same time that a bunch of articles remembering Ellen Bryant Voigt came out. And Rachel Jameson Webster wants to do something slightly different. She wants to tell the story of how, yes, Ellen helped her a lot. She made her a more confident writer, a more confident woman. But then when Rachel started writing about Mary Magdalene and writing a book voiced from the afterlife by Mary Magdalene, Ellen Bryant Voigt had a problem with that. They had a very uncomfortable lunch at which Ellen changed Rachel's order without asking. And they haven't
So
spoken
good.
since. But look, I reread this article just now, and the other thing that I need to mention before we get into it is that I think this is a drive-by, because in the
Yeah,
middle
yeah.
there's this little
The Me Too
moment,
thing.
yeah, where she's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when I did experience the kind of par for the course sexual violation by a male teacher who came on to me, Ellen defended him, saying that I should give him a break because he was going through a difficult divorce. And this is given as a by the way on the way to the actual fight. And I'm like, but you just said the thing.
Yeah. But she didn't want to have to give a detailed account of it. She wanted to give, and because she makes a point of saying, "Oh, I learned. I think I really learned things. I think I really understand where she was coming from, even though she completely failed me as a mentor there." Here's my suspicion: the drive-by, as you said, I think the drive-by is the real article, and making it an article about the mentorship and the great Tuna story means that she's not failing to actually give an account of what happened, which she would be called out for if she had actually made it about the Me Too thing. Like if the article were actually claiming to be about the Me Too thing, then there would be more pressure on like, okay, but hold on a minute, what happened?
And you think those details wouldn't have been satisfying if they had come out?
Well, I think she thought they wouldn't be satisfying, or she didn't want to get into them.
Mm-hmm.
She either didn't want to get into them, but she wanted, vilifying credit, or she thought that if they did come out, they wouldn't be satisfying, and they would make people read the story differently than she set it up to be read. I have no problem at all believing that some male teacher did something scummy and that Ellen Bryant Voigt might have said like, get over it. Like, I have no problem believing that might have happened. But I think if this were an article that were actually claiming to be about that incident, there would just be a lot more pressure on like, hold on. You said he committed a violation sexually. Meaning what?
So she gets to do both. She gets to tell that story.
She gets to have her cake and eat it too.
Yeah. But how does it strike you, Nida? Does it seem like that's the real goal, or are we being too?
I wonder if well, it's sort of damning also to Ellen Voigt that I guess she didn't come to her students' defense, and that was such a big failure in her eyes, or it like in any mentor, I guess, to not defend. But I think don't you think the reason why she wouldn't do that is because, I don't know, I think a lot of it also feels couched in that era of the 90s. And what can you say about it except that you don't want to sound conceited, you don't want to sound like you read too much into something because it's so veiled in its description. I don't know exactly what happened, but she felt scared. I mean, I don't know, or she felt, it's hard for me to figure out exactly what I would tell of that story, because I think we all have stories from that era where you would say, oh, this person said this thing and I just let it go. And whether it's a microaggression or just an aggression or an actual violation, like how much attention do you want on yourself to be responsible for ruining somebody's life? Like it's almost like that.
Yeah, I think that's right too. Like, I think it does throw a particularly harsh spotlight on Rachel Webster that she probably doesn't want, and maybe feels like she's already going to get because she's telling this unflattering story. But yeah, I think that's true too. Everybody has a little collection of things that happened back in the day that now they kind of look at and go, oh, well, I guess that lines up with all these other stories.
Oh, I didn't realize I could say something, or I didn't realize that was not okay, or
yeah, I thought that was normal.
He was helping me.
Just to clarify though, what's not happening is that something she had a bad experience with a male teacher back in the day, and he did something scummy. And now, many years later, she's saying, oh, I really think about that. Like, that's not what's happening. What's happening is that happened then. And then, at the time, she went to Voigt and said, this shitty thing happened to me. And Voigt said, get over it. Like, don't, like, give him a break. And I think what I do give Webster credit for and Voight credit for, although again, like brushing the sort of thing under the table is not good, and just letting this sort of thing go is not good. But I think there is a smart point artistically and professionally made here. In that moment, Webster writes, she taught me not to make my story out of some moment of harm, but
Yeah.
instead to return to the poems. And I think
Yeah.
I give Webster credit for recognizing that and for seeing that, like, although on the one hand, yes, you do want there to be justice and you also want to like protect other people and you want to take care of somebody who's a real problem, from her, in a way, like the more selfish approach is Voight saying you want to protect your own work from this becoming the story of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think like in a way that in a just almost in just like a mercenary amoral way, that struck me as good mentoring in that moment. Now, not maybe not good like running the program, maybe not good ignoring a colleague's wrongdoings, but in terms of protecting the artistic integrity of this one person, saying don't let this become what your whole life is about.
I do feel like that is the most interesting part of this article to me, was not that moment, which feels, unfortunately so kind of pedestrian in a way. But it was the way that the protectiveness and the support becomes, in a mentor, becomes a proprietary attitude.
Yeah.
And in that moment where she pounds her fist on the table and says, you have to stop with the mysticism, it's making your writing worse. I can both imagine being Rachel Webster and thinking, oh my God, she's unhappy with me. What am I going to do? And I can also imagine myself being like an Ellen Voight type character and feeling like I've poured years into you. What the fuck are
Mm-hmm.
you doing?
Mm-hmm.
So
Do you
I,
do you
yeah,
do you want to read? I just thought like that I do like that paragraph, and I feel
yeah,
like it's worth hearing. Do you want to read it, or shall I read
yeah,
it? Or
yeah, you read it, you read it.
so she says, Voight and I went out to dinner together. My first manuscript, the thesis she had advised and guided, had not found a publisher, and my second book had come to me in a very different way. So she had studied under Voight, and then stayed in touch with her and continued to work with her, and then eventually was a sort of colleague of hers. Webster goes on, this was a book, the second book, this was a book voiced from the afterlife by Mary Magdalene. Embarrassing for me at first, but a process that felt involuntary and propulsive as I traced an archetypal energy and attempted a cultural correction around female wisdom. Ellen had read the new manuscript, and it had infuriated her. She pounded her fist on the table and told me that I had to stop with the mysticism because it was making my writing worse, and I was going to back myself into a corner. Then she called the waiter back to our table and changed my order. She told him that I needed to have the tuna rare, that this would be better than the vegetarian dish I had ordered. That is so. This is so good. I mean, it's obviously incredibly shitty, but it is. Oh man, that is really good. And again, to Webster's credit, she later writes, "Ellen was right about my poetry."
Yeah.
Yeah, but you were saying, and I think you're right, Alice, to put a finger on this question of mentorship and proprietariness,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
does
the
seem to
sense
be,
that you own, in some ways the work becomes yours.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I don't have a great deal of experience with this, so I'm just kind of guessing, but I'm wondering if either of you do, like on either end.
Of what? Having a proprietary
Well, no,
relationship.
just having just having a mentor mentee type of connection, and what that was like, whether there was anything in that that felt akin to this in any way.
Honestly, that moment is a little bit reminiscent of, mommy dearest, just a little bit stage mom, like you are an extension of me, and
Mm.
this is life and this is brutal and I made you and it's a little bit of what you were saying about how you could see yourself being like, I've put so much into this, and then you're gonna throw it away on speaking voices through Mary Magdalene. I can
I
kind
mean,
of
the book
see
does
that.
sound really bad.
yeah, oh yeah,
And she admits it, and she also regrets that she cut off herself from that world. She says that she's regretted not being part of that world ever since. And And so it seems like she sacrificed some things as well. It wasn't free what she did, but yeah, I mean, I don't I just remember also being, just to go back to this whole idea of like men helping you. And like when I was in grad school, I
Mhm.
feel like it was all men. And even if you wanted a mentor relationship, I mean, there was a certain type of poetry that I think was being pushed, and it was very traditional. And it was, I didn't know how much of, I felt like writing about personal stuff was not really that autobiographical stuff, or, things having to do with my ethnic background or anything like that. I didn't think that was particularly encouraged, because you were supposed to kind of forward the modernist, attaching yourself to the classics or this kind of thing, mythology, rewriting it somehow, reimagining that somehow. So any mentor relationships, which I guess we did kind of have for that short time, to me it just felt like, you know, intimidating, and also like I just couldn't do it. It didn't do really great things for my poems anyway. So as much as I maybe wanted it, it just wasn't, there was too much there that I couldn't please in that way.
So I was curious, Nita, about this. With both of y'all, for me, there's this specific category that I think of as a master. Like my dad's an architect. For architecture is extremely hierarchical. You definitely have like a lots of younger people working under one guy model in the same way that you did in like Renaissance studios. You'd have a master and apprentices, and there's a kind of relationship between poets where they're two poets, one of whom is much younger or notably younger, and the older one takes a special interest in the younger one's work and has a long-term relationship, having his fingers in the pie and working with it and caring for it and shepherding it. Has either of you had that kind of relationship?
I have not.
I like when I was in college, I had my thesis, like I worked with a poet, and he was really kind, but I can't say that it was an extended amount of time that
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I couldn't keep it. It didn't stay up. I just didn't have. I myself was rather inconsistent. Like I didn't really know what I was doing in grad school, and I didn't. I mean, it was. I don't know, the things that I really relied on in grad school were sort of the things that I had relied on kind of in an undisciplined way when I was growing up. And it can only take you so far. And I just didn't have a lot of life experience in general. So I'm not sure anybody saw anything in me that was like, okay, I could mold her to be, the next anything. But I think I I wonder, I don't know, Matt, did you have that at all in grad school, or even after that, maybe with other people
I
outside?
had a no. I mean, I had the relationship I've had that is somewhat comparable to that is with uh, Ryan. I mean, with a couple of writers, but chiefly with Ryan, whom I met as an undergrad and as a peer, and we continue to be part of each other's writing life since then. But no, I mean, I've had older writers at various times see things I have written and say like, "Oh, it's pretty good," but I haven't had anybody take it, like make an investment in my
Right,
work
right.
in that way. The woman I call my mentor, I studied with her for a year in high school, and then I kept up with her for the next 10 years, which were the last 10 years of her life, and
Mm.
she was wonderful and a brilliant, scholar and reader, but was not a writer herself. Beyond that, no. I mean, I've envied that, and I envy Rachel Jameson Webster. That like what she's describing here is something particular that I think is not so easy to find. So part of me sympathizes with her in that like I have such a bad attitude about authority that I would definitely have would not have responded well to this kind of mentorship. But I also think like you ungrateful fool. like like you don't realize that like what this means. Now, on the other hand, I can't I can't say reading their poems in either case I was like, oh, this is someone who really knows what she's doing. But I do I do think there is this. I mean, where I have a little bit of an inkling of some of this is with a couple younger poets who, to much, it's again, it's relatively short term because I'm like I don't have long ongoing relationships with but like there are a couple few younger poets who bring their work to me semi consistently, and I feel like, oh, I could see how this might be a thing that could
Hmm.
develop into this at some point, depending on a number of different factors. And I feel a responsibility in that way that I like. It makes me think about somebody like this and think like somebody who would respond in this way, pound her fist and do the tuna trick. So good. Um, my thought when I read that is, you spoiled brat, Ellen Bryant Voigt. Like, what gave you to think this was an acceptable way to behave?
Hmm.
Like because a lot of the essay is about like, oh, she had it really hard, and she wasn't prepared for how it was, going to be, things were going to be better for younger generations. And that seems true, but what also seems true is like she had it pretty fucking easy if she's behaving like this. This is spoiled brat behavior. What it really reminds me of is Dave Smith, like whom again she was friends with. He was not. He never took an interest in my work. He fucking hated me from the get go. But this is how he treated his proteges. It's how he treated Ryan. He was a bully. And again, like Dave, spoiled fucking brat, had it easy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, like my feeling when I think about the younger poets I have, again, I don't have at this point like a long relationship, but like, holy shit, have some fucking respect for the work. You don't
Yeah.
treat people like this. This is not how you teach people. This is not how you, like, I think about my daughters. I think about students I've had. Like, why would this be a good way to make somebody's work better?
Yeah.
So yeah, I in a way, like I'm disappointed in both of them. This essay.
Yeah, I kind of look at that time period because I actually also had Dave Smith and I think he was kinder to girls. I do. But
My
I
my
also
wife loved him, had a great relationship with him.
but I also, I could see a reaction. But I look at that time period and I'm just blown away by how mystify like how we were navigating it all just because I didn't realize the power dynamics and I didn't realize like we were being taught in a kind of old-fashioned way. It was still kind of old-fashioned back then. And I thought that that brutality was supposed to translate into better choices in my poems, just like her advice to um, Rachel Webster, and that's right. So I just don't I I just don't I look at it because it's actually like brutality in my upbringing, like saying crazy things and bullying is not that different from how I was raised. So it's sort of like, yeah, this is like the white version. I get it. Like, this is the literary white version. It makes sense to me. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that I was just like still trying to be good, like a good girl. Like, and I think, but it also translated into like pretty, I don't think, like, I just hadn't found or figured out what to write. That if you hide all this other stuff about yourself, or, if this entire bit of poetry or this material is not able to be written about in a way that satisfies this other generation of people, then I just found it difficult to navigate. And so I just didn't write for a very long time after that experience.
Wow. This is really interesting because usually on this show, what we're saying is the modern MFA is bullshit and don't do it. But it sounds like what we're talking about here, I'm assuming, is your time at Johns Hopkins. Do I have that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a more traditional MFA. Is there anything that you think you gained from that approach, either of you?
I mean, from the approach or just the program? I mean, I did like I love the people I met during that time, and I had a good time. I think it reframes things now that I see how it can be now. You don't have to be like that in order to get better words and things. And it was an MA when I went. It was just 1 year. I think Matt did 2 years as an
Yeah,
MFA, a proper.
it shifted like right before I got there. I think Ryan was the second class, first or second class that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably better to do 2 years because you don't really get the momentum going until probably your last semester or your first year. So anyway, yeah, no, I mean, I think I found it really helpful to learn form. Like we were learning forms, formal poetry, and that was helpful. And I'm just still trying to figure out like that life that we were leading as a woman or girl, whatever, in that time period was really, I don't know. I don't think they do things. I think it would be hard to describe to people now, kids now, what that was like. It's almost like a classical education because all our like we had to take a PhD class with, do you remember Alan Grossman? Matt, did you have to take
I
Alan?
went, so his big farewell like event conference was the when I was there. So
Right.
I saw him give a great lecture and read some stuff by him, but I didn't take classes with him.
He would, so Alice, he was the English professor, and sort of the intellect in the English department who kind of, he and the writing department kind of fought about how to teach poetry and this kind of thing. And it was a requirement for us to take classes with the PhD students who I mean, it was just like crazy covens meeting.
Yeah, I
It's
can
just like
imagine.
yeah, it was just like in a shoebox of a office room lined with books, and he would turn around and say things like Nida, and I would sit behind him purposely so that he would not call on me. He was
Mhm.
like, Nida, what is poetry? Or is Robert Frost a poet? And I'd be like, eh, yes, I guess I'm here to learn that. I just
Oh my God.
but yeah, I think there was just this real actual divide between what is poetry and how to teach it. And it was like very serious argument between whether you could do it through forms, because he didn't believe in teaching form and, all these kinds of things in order to achieve what his vision of poetry was. And I just didn't know how to incorporate these into my own. And I didn't have the agency, I think, to be like, no, I screw this and screw that. I'm going to do this and no matter what. So that it was a good experience, but I just don't think I was muscular enough in my ego yet to kind of fight those forces. Not that it had to be a fight or anything, but it also felt somewhat familiar. The instruction style was familiar personally from, my own experience as a child. But yeah, I that was my experience. I don't know, Matt. Maybe a couple years later it was different for you.
So different in some ways, and not in others. It was 2 years. They didn't there'd been a pretty good split from the English and humanities, other, because at Hopkins, it's not the case at all schools, but at Hopkins there is a separate writing seminars department that is,
Mhm.
that's on its own. So that was all self-contained. The people who were there when I was there were the poets who were there were Dave Smith, John Irwin. Greg Williamson was not a full professor, but I did get to take a semester with him. He was very good. And Mary Jo Salter was new when I was new there. I, yeah, Dave hated me from the jump. John Irwin was, I think, brilliant, but a truly terrible teacher. It's like a perfect division of form and content. His teaching method was sitting facing down at the table, flipping through like a 180-page packet that he printed out for us, and just mumbling monotone, rumbling, like either going through reading things aloud or just running through the tape recording in his head of all the brilliant thoughts he'd had. And then the result of the classes I had with him were that I was just barely keeping awake in class, but then years later, lots of little things he said would seep through. Mary Jo, I butted heads with and sort of later got along with, and I'm on good terms with her now, and I learned some things from her. But I also think like I had a bad attitude about everything at that point. Like in a way, I had the opposite problem from you. I was already so used to being extremely cynical about a writing department because of Georgia, and I am a naturally combative person with a hair trigger fuck you reflex, and and like could tell from the beginning that Dave disliked me. So I was ready to brush everything off and do my own shit regardless. And so I think I similarly didn't necessarily learn a whole lot, partly for the opposite reason. But I think what was definitely still true was that like there were, despite Mary Jo's presence, like there was definitely some like bad old days misogyny and like grad students sleeping with their students, professors sleeping, like there was like bad stuff, in terms of like the way women were treated in a number of different ways, like casual ways, professors commenting on women's breasts in class, this kind of thing, as well as like just lots of other many different levels. And that did not go for all of the male professors there, but it went for some. And of the, it was definitely mostly white, but of the people in the program who were not white, there was I I would definitely say like it was not encouraged to write about ethnic experience or to write about race. Like that cultural moment had not come, clicked into place. It probably did click into place like, just probably like 4 or 5 years after I left. It
Hmm.
probably would have been radically different to go back then. But at the time, it was definitely still very much like universal poetry is poetry
Yeah.
in which like race is a sort of an invisible neutral tone.
Yeah.
So all of that seemed very similar. It sounds like to what you experienced, even if some other things were different.
Yeah. That sounds about right. I mean, I think it's not that I didn't learn from the teachers. I mean, I did learn from the forums and I did learn just by these questions that people were asking. But I think I learned most from my peers, just like, and
Mm.
that's what I missed so much after leaving the program because I didn't really do much in the writing world for the next 10 to 15 years. I had my friends who were poets and I would sometimes send them things, but that community, you don't really get that again. You don't
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah,
all the
yeah.
people surrounding your work and the attention. And I took it for granted back then. Like, I just didn't realize it would be so hard that I would want it and that it would feel lonely intellectually if I didn't get it. But yeah, I think the community is really and that's what she regrets too. Like in the article, she's like, I really regret leaving that community. So I think she thinks that, I mean, it did cost her in a way, but
And that community in this case
the Warren Wilson one.
is Warren Wilson, where she had studied and then she kept in touch with Ellen Bryant Voigt, and then she years later came and was a some sort of like visiting faculty there. But
Yeah.
she sort of cut that. Yeah, my commitment to my writing did not wane, she writes, but I did not remain in that community, which would have allowed me to better my craft as a poet in conversation with other
Yeah.
serious poets. And now I am feeling what this loss has meant to my life and my work, which was, I thought, one of the more sort of frank and touching moments in the essay.
And by writing this essay, she's both reaching out to that community and alienating herself from it further because she's told the story about the professor. She's sort of like, in that way, damaged Ellen Boyd's memory right after she died. Yeah, so she's probably not winning any of these friends back with the article, but she is saying to them, I miss you.
You did not do an MFA, Alice, but I feel like the Melbourne poetry scene, as I imagine it, is like a rolling MFA. It's almost like the offsite events at a big writing conference. Like, it's like that's Melbourne day in and day out. And by doing Poetry Says, you sort of you kind of like created this sort of weird nebulous program of sorts for yourself. What has your experience been with relationships resembling or not resembling these kind of pseudo mentor situations?
Yeah, well, it's a pretty flat structure. Like
Yeah, yeah.
if there is Michael Farrell's been called the boss of Australian poetry.
Right.
I drive him home regularly to his house, like
You're
to
Michael Farrell's designated
I'm a
driver.
designated driver. I hate doing it because I'm like, I can see the
Yeah,
headline in my head, like International Treasure Michael Farrell killed by
right.
fucking hopeless
Podcaster
idiot.
kills. Right.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, but like Michael's Michael. I
Yeah.
get that now. For a long time, I was quite scared of him, but I get that he's just Michael now.
But
Um,
Australia is also, this is a place where nobody wants to be the boss. Nobody
Nobody
wants to
wants to be the
get caught being in
boss.
charge.
No, and the only person who called Michael the boss got away with it because he was joking. Um, but yeah, in terms of mentorship, I did have like a formal-ish mentorship with a poet called Bonnie Cassidy. But as I was reading this piece, I thought, can I ever imagine Bonnie having this kind of an opinion about my work? Like we worked together off and on for a couple of years. I think she helped me quite a bit, but I cannot imagine her saying, I think you're going in the wrong direction, Alice, even like anything as mild as that. The other example, I suppose, is my relationship with Joshua Megan, but he is so much a friend now that,
Yeah.
he could easily say to me, hey, Alice, terrible poem. Like, what the hell are you doing? But I'd be like, well, I don't know. Like, it wouldn't really, yeah, I'd be like, yeah, I guess it was. Anyway, how are
What,
you? Like,
but is that, would that help?
I think I would like appreciate it's like it's always good to have somebody who will say, that poem is bad. What are you doing? And that the relationship can sustain that. But I feel like what's being described here is much more, like I said, proprietary.
Yeah, yeah,
Rachel Webster belongs to Ellen Voight, and if she's going off and writing about Mary Magdalene, she's breaking the deal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And she was, I think she does perceptively say that she thinks this had to do with Voight's own development and the fact that Voight went through a kind of a mystical stage herself.
Yeah, she's like, you're reminding me of my young self and everything I gave up, and I don't want
Right.
you to do that. Yeah, maybe there was a bit of
Which
that in it
seems
too.
again like bad mentoring.
Yeah.
Like what? Like why? This was again. Dave did this with Ryan. Like gave Ryan huge grief when Ryan started writing in meter because
Mm.
Dave was like a hard line believer in Anglo-Saxon inflected free verse, and it was
Hmm.
like, oh, you're betraying my legacy by writing a different kind of poetry than I write, and that to me just seems like that's again. I think you're right. That's like stage mom stuff. That's you need to be the thing I imagined for myself, which just seems like that's the opposite of good teaching or good mentoring.
Do you guys think that magic is not earned and is not fair?
I kind of like that line as a
I
sentiment. I
do.
think we're
And I
we're
don't
like
know if I believe
Webster.
that.
Where
Yeah,
is it
well,
again?
like,
Oh,
it's
this
in
is a
page
line from the
12. Yeah, yeah,
poem The Gymnast about Nadia
Magic.
yeah, yeah,
Comaneci
yeah,
sticking a point
Yeah.
landing. Magic is
yeah,
not earned and is not fair.
yeah. She undercuts herself by saying that that line is not jammed and is end stopped, which is to say that line is not jammed and is not jammed. But I like that as like a thing somebody might feel moved to say, but as like a philosophical statement, which is how Webster seems to take it. I think like I don't know, okay, sure. But I believe it as like an it feels true to like a voice that would say something.
But I guess it seems because the thing that comes after it is like, did you earn that line? And I remember that line, that did you earn it? You
That
didn't
oh
earn
yeah
it.
yeah 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 yeah
They used to say that all the time. You didn't earn that. And I think that, like, well, where does conviction come from when you're young? I just don't know. Like, that's the part where some people, I was just blown away that some people could be convincing and check all the boxes for what would be accepted in that era of poetry writing, when you have,
Yeah.
the big names, you got just the big modernists, like, but also the ones that we read, like Ashbery or Graham or Gluck or, what checks the boxes? Like, where do you get your conviction from? Or how do you make a line convincing? And I just didn't, yeah, I just didn't know how to, you can only mimic so much of the style before you're
Mm.
like, I got nothing else. Like, I remember my poems getting narrower and narrower and narrower. I literally
Like
had
short,
no,
the lines would get shorter, you mean?
yeah, my literally, I have no, usually it's like, yes, this is it. I can't, there's no more I got to say because I just didn't have the experience to make anything convincing. I think like to earn it, like I just wasn't sure. For me, I think so much of life experience is tied to whatever wherever this conviction comes from now is definitely a life experience. But for some people, I'm so still impressed and wowed by friends who were able to do it at such a young age because I just was too afraid, or they, were able to do it plausibly, convincingly.
But that's part of what I like about this sentiment. Magic is not earned and is not fair, which is that on the one hand, it's like it sounds resentful of magic, but on the other hand, it's an acknowledgement that often a thing that has no business being there can still be pretty fucking amazing. And that, like, I'm actually really glad you pointed to that because I was thinking as I was thinking back through this essay, like how little of the essay actually addresses any question having to do with making writing better. There's stuff that I'll read a couple, like there's some stuff she writes about writing that makes me think like this person, Rachel Jamison Webster, has absolutely no business teaching writing to anybody. But that one line about earning, did you earn this statement? Did you earn this? And that was exactly this. I mean, again, it makes me think like Dave and Voight were friends because his term for that was, oh, your wisdom statement. I don't want to hear any more of your wisdom statements. But I think, Alice, you and Jonathan did this episode recently on Advice from an Unknown Poet about writing advice and like bad writing advice. And I think like almost all conventional writing advice, I think, has some value to it, has a, even show don't tell, various other, like there's a kernel of truth or there's a value, there's a way to get at it. I think one of the most useless pieces of writing advice or criticism is exactly what you just identified, Nita, which is that you didn't earn this. Because I think it all it suggests is that they're what, like in an ideal poem, in a correctly written poem, you would have done enough, you would have eaten enough vegetables, you would have done enough work that then you could prove that the line that you included in the poem deserved to be there. And that has absolutely nothing to do with anybody enjoying anything. And it is exactly the kind of like laborious, studious, carefully observed, kind of painstakingly composed, well imitated, responsible workshop poem that I just think is like, it's the kind of poem that you sit down with your peers in the workshop with the teacher and you realize it's bulletproof. There's nothing bad anybody can say about it, but Jesus fucking Christ, you would never want to read it in your spare time if you had any choice in the matter. And I think like that's that sentiment and even that tendency to say like, oh, is this earned? Did you earn this? I just think that's an almost perfectly harmful way to think about poetry.
But don't you think also when you're a young poet, you just throw things on the wall to see if they'll stick? Like you're
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. Totally.
say these wild things, and then you're like, did you like, does that work? Like,
Totally.
can I
Yeah.
pull this off? Can I pull this off? And I think so. It's to me, it's sort of like yeah, I know what you mean. But I also feel like when you're a young poet, sometimes you just need to be told, I don't believe this. You can't, and it's not convincing. And instead of being like, you didn't earn it, I guess,
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah,
another way to
yeah.
say it, but just like, I'm not convinced that this is what you mean. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think,
but that's exactly that seems like a good response. Like this isn't I don't buy this. I don't believe this.
yeah, the paternalistic tone, sort of like you didn't earn
Yeah,
the
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's exactly where I think it takes a wrong turn is where you turn it from like, well, this sucks to read and I don't believe it,
Yeah.
versus you haven't earned the right to be here. You haven't you don't realize how much work I've put into this. You don't know what I had to go through to get here. That's again like that may be true, but that has nothing to do with teaching anybody to be a better writer.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you're right. Like I entirely get where the impulse comes from to say you didn't earn this. I just think it's a good example of letting your own feelings get in the way of being a good teacher.
But I mean, those worlds are so rarefied. I mean, there's only a few positions. There's pretty
Yeah,
sweet
yeah, yeah,
positions.
yeah.
Like if you get there, you got it made kind of like, and that doesn't exist anymore as much either.
That was the other one that made me like made my head nearly explode when she talked about how part of being a good mentor. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Being a mentor to younger women has meant preparing them for opportunities that the older generation did not have. I was like, oh, but see, now you're actually this is the you need to do the opposite, right? Now you need to, if you want to be a good poetry mentor, you need to prepare the younger generation to not have opportunities that the older generation did have, right? Like
Yes.
this is partly where like it would made me so mad to learn that she teaches poetry at Northwestern. I think like
Yeah.
this, like, but again, I think like the exactly that rarefied atmosphere, exactly the difficulty of attaining one of these positions and the disconnection between attaining one of these positions and being a good poet and how few positions like this there are, all of that contributes to the motivation to teach badly rather than to teach well, to teach in a defensive way, to teach in a way that has to do with your own anxiety or your own sense of specialness or your own sense of why I got to be where I am versus what will make this young poet's writing better. So you think about like Rimbaud, think about like any good young Keats, like what kind of arrogance, what kind of like unearned impulses, what kind of like crazy big gestures would be going on there that you would be inclined to say like you have no business do it. Do you realize it? I had to reach the age of such and such before I dared to write. Like that's not how poetry works. Yeah, so I just this felt like it was a as much as anything this was a record of a like the end of a long bad stretch of teaching poetry. Like Ellen Bright Voigt seems like a less bad version of Rachel Jameson Webster as a teacher and poet, but like the same legacy. This is the same legacy of a kind of a proprietary. I mean, everything she says about what writing is and what writing should mean. She taught generations of people to center writing and reading amid their real lives. There's a line where she talks about what she thinks writing is, and it just made me want to. Oh, here. We keep teaching as a way of staying in relationship with the future, and we keep writing because everything we write about ourselves remains woefully incomplete. We are each more complex than any small story we would tell about ourselves, and certainly any story we would dare to tell about anyone else. We keep writing because this process allows us to meet the stranger in front of us and within us, to articulate the next perception and slip the limitations of our current awareness. No, 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 no. We don't keep teaching as a way to stay in relationship with the future. We keep teaching in order to help younger poets get better at writing poetry. We don't keep writing because this process allows us to meet the stranger in front of us and within us. We keep writing to try to make an experience for a reader that is a good one. This is like therapy stuff. This is exactly the wrong way to think about teaching. It's like wildly beside the point, and it seems like this is the next more enshittified generation of what Ellen Bright Voigt seemed to be instilling. And maybe Ellen Bright Voigt had different emphases. She says Bright Voigt would have been annoyed with her for putting such an emphasis on feminism as she. And I get that. Like I get that Voigt had her own angle on this. But in both cases, it seems like it's it's beside the point. They're not actually addressing the real task and the real question and the real matter at hand.
But that's probably because she's just trying in her mind to make it right. Like, like she wants to sleep at night Like she wants to have her, she wants to have her, she wants to have her mentor.
Yeah, she wants to keep
She wants
every
her
part of this.
mother,
Yeah.
she wants it's mommy. Like it's like like I want to have this. I want to show her that I've learned through her how to be a hard ass when it comes to truth. And here I am revealing, what the truth was. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. What do you think,
Like
Mum? Do you love
it's
me
sort of
now?
it sort of writes that self, like that kind of like I think it's just we're watching it and we're
Yeah.
seeing it.
Yeah, fully.
And she's just trying to make it right with herself
Mm.
in this way that I mean, like, maybe she's still mysticism is still at work here, but it is this. I mean, I think this is what we're seeing the product of. I mean, I I agree with you, but at the same time, that's what this is. I think it's just like still a bit of wanting her as a mom and but like to lay claim like she was my mother and then this was what happened and now I am her product.
So that's the story of Ellen Voigt. I wonder if listeners have any sort of similar stories that they want to share. I would love to hear them. I want to end by reading a couple of poems, but before I do, I will let you know that in the Secret Show we get into a bit more movie chat, and this is because Nida is actually the editor, the poetry editor at a magazine called Film Quarterly, oldest movie magazine in the US apparently, and is just about to start publishing poems. So Nida tells us a little bit more about that submission opportunity on The Secret Show. You can listen to that if you're not signed up already by going to SLEERICKETS.substack.com. Pop in your email address, you'll get a week's access for free, and after that it is very cheap. Okay, I do want to respond in the luxury that I have to sort of talk to myself here for a few minutes. I want to respond to a recent episode that Matthew put out called Possible Horrible Truth, about, among other things, a book called The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker. I had a lot of thoughts listening to that episode, and I've been reading Les Murray, finally reading Les Murray. As with John Forbes, I had a very bad attitude toward Murray. I just thought, I don't want to have anything to do with him. He just seems, I don't know, I just had a bad attitude. But I finally come to him via his biggest success, a book called Subhuman Redneck Poems. It won the 1997 T.S. Eliot Prize. And God fucking damn it, it's so good. It's like, I'm only, I don't know, maybe 10 or so poems into this thing, but like, holy shit. Les Murray, guys, hot take, Les Murray's a really good poet. Oh God, don't tell the Australians I said that. Yeah, holy shit. Okay, so I want to read this poem called Corniche, which is relatively long, so I'm going to get straight into it. It's basically Murray contemplating death and contemplating the fact that he's having some chest pains. And a corniche is actually, I thought it was like a French pastry, but no, it's a road on the side of a cliff or mountain. One side is like a cliff face, so you feel like you could one slip of the steering wheel and you're going over. So I just read this poem and I thought, that's kind of what Matthew was talking about. So I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to read one more poem, and then I'm going to sign off. Corniche by Les Murray. I work all day and hardly drink at all. I can reach down and feel if I'm depressed. I adore the Creator because I made myself, and a few times a week a wire jags in my chest. The first time I'd been coming apart all year. Weeping, incoherent, cigars had given me up. Any road round a cliff edge, I'd whimper along in low gear. Then cardiac horror, masking my pulses' calm lub-dub. It was the victim sickness. Adrenaline howling in my head. The black dog was my brain. Come to drown me in my breath was energy's black hole. Depression. Compare of the pre-dawn show, when, returned from a pee, you stew and welter in your death. The rogue space rock is on course to snuff your world, sure, but go acute, and its oncoming fills your day. The brave die but once? I could go 100 times a week, clinging to my pulse with the world's edge inches away. Laugh, who never shrank around wizened genitals there or killed themselves to stop dying. The blow that never falls batters you stupid. Only gradually do you notice a slight scorn in you for what appalls. A self inside self, cool as conscience, one to be erased in your final night or faxed, still knows, beneath all the mute grand opera and uncaused effect, that death which can be imagined is not true death. The crunch is illusion. There's still no outside world, but you start to see. You're like one enthralled by bad art. Yet for a real onset, what cover? You gibber to casualty, are checked, scorned, calmed. There's nothing wrong with your heart. The terror of death is not afraid of death. Fear, pure, is intransitive. A Hindenburg of vast rage rots, though, above your life. See it, and you feel flogged. But like an addict, you sniffle aboard to your cage, because you will cling to this beast as it gnaws you, for the crystal in its kidneys, the elixir in its wings, till your darlings are the police of an immense fatigue. I came to the world unrehearsed, but I've learned some things. When you curl, stuffed, in the pot at rainbow's end, it is life roaring and racing, and nothing you can do. Were you really God, you could have lived all the lives that now decay into misery and cripple you. A for adrenaline, the original A-bomb, fuel and punishment of aspiration, the Enlightenment's airburst. Back when God made me, I had no script. It was better. For all the death, we also die, unrehearsed. Damn it, he's so good. What? Now I have to deal with that. Yeah, he makes me want to be better. What the fuck? Les Murray. I don't know how to reconcile that, but I just thought that was such an incredible poem. I just had to read it to you. I also really want to read a poem from Novice, Nida's book. We sort of batted around the idea of her reading her poem Violent Femmes, but I think maybe you know that poem, and I think I would like to read you something different. I wrote to Nida after I finished this book, and I said how much I loved it, and I think probably the poem that affected me the most was this one that I'm about to read before I sign off. It's called The Storage Unit. In a California heatwave, I find a black widow behind the shoeboxes filled with my parents' sky blue airmail letters from Thailand. Her egg sac is torn, and the nymphets scatter over our flotsam. Mother's floral blouses, brass arm cuffs, astrology charts, father's engineering compass, tax records, and birthday cards. For $5, I gain access to a landfill and fling boxes into hills of printers and broken shelves. But when I go to the beach, the tide wrenches the pillowcase carrying his ashes from my grip, and shriveled marigolds fall with shards of bone. Devastation is slow, until quick, a foundation sliding from a cliff. He was the four walls around Mum's kitchen. A wave reaches up and drenches my shirt. He'd laugh about the Black Widow guarding our things and tell me to get out before the tide knocks me like dice against the high walls of this coast. Get that book, Novice, out from LSU Press. That's all from me. Thanks for listening to my poems. You can reach Matthew, as always, at SLEERICKETS@gmail.com. And with any luck, we will be speaking to you all again very soon. Until then.